A breakdown of some of the budget, and joining us live now, our panel is back. Adrian Batra, editor-in-chief at the Toronto Sun, Alvin Tedjo, former Liberal leadership candidate, and Kim Wright, NDP strategist with Wright Strategies. We just heard from Andrea Horwath as well, the NDP leader. I want to go to you, Alvin. What is missing in this document? It seems that there was nothing much there for the NDP.
No, there's, what I'm really wondering here, Stephanie, is what did we wait for? Why did we wait weeks and almost a couple of months for a budget that didn't contain anything new? And when you talk to people about how these budgets work and what goes into it, everybody tells you to listen to the first 5 minutes. Listen to the priorities of the government in the first 5 minutes in those first few opening paragraphs. We didn't hear from Minister Bethlenfalvy anything about healthcare, anything about education, anything about seniors. That is not their priority. And when you dig deep into some of the numbers, you're seeing that there's actually less money going into education, and there's barely just over $1 billion going into healthcare. So when we have growing revenues and growing windfalls in tax revenue, and they're talking about all these investments, none of them are going into the programs that people are counting on and the programs that matter to Ontarians.
Okay, and does this in any way answer the affordability question for you?
No, I don't think it does at all. I think they missed the mark on that as well. I think there was an opportunity here that I think is going to disappoint a lot of supporters and a lot of his own supporters who are looking at this and seeing an opportunity to really invest and really see that. And he's talking about, a 10-year infrastructure plan that is really an echo and extension of the Liberal plan from 4 years ago. It's not new, so I don't really know what we waited for. And it's definitely disappointing.
Okay, Adrian Batra. So we've heard from the NDP, Andrea Horwath and Kim, and also the Liberals now. Alvin, what is your take on this document that's getting just a resounding thumbs down? I know that's very surprising, probably, to you.
I think that was for Adrian, right?
I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
I find it very fascinating in terms of the strategy behind it. I mean, the Ford government literally backed up a steel truck in Andrea Horwath's backyard, putting her in a position where she's going to oppose the expansion of EVs and green vehicles and the expansion of the steel industry and green technology in Hamilton. I mean, from a politically strategic perspective, that's a very smart move. But this is really, all about what is going to happen over the course of the next 35 plus days for the election period. This is very much an election document. We all know that. We all agreed on that from the beginning. But as far as the benchmarks that you see where the Ford government wants to go and where they view the future of Ontario, you did hear a lot of that today. And, well, frankly, we've been hearing it for the last few weeks as budget leaks have been just that. But the affordability question, they're looking at that LIFT program, and it even harkens way back, Steph, to when Jim Flaherty was finance minister in Ontario. They really wanted to get hundreds of thousands of Ontarians off the tax lines and just able to have the ability to keep all that money that they earn. But this is sort of building on that in a way. But I don't find it reasonable to discount these incremental tax reductions and even the gas tax reduction that matters to Ontarians right now. Today, they're going to go out of their house and go fill up their tank, and it's costing a lot of money, and you're getting whacked at both levels of government. So a small relief matters to Ontarians right now. And so those are the sorts of things that the Ford government is relying on, that when Ontarians do go to the polls in June, that they're going to think to themselves, is my life better off? Am I about the same? And they're going to hope that those rebate checks came in the mail, and that they're getting a little bit of relief at the pumps.
Okay, let's go to Kim. Talking about the nurses, Andrew Horwath focused on that, as well as the PSWs. We saw that there's a $5,000 signing bonus for nurses. The PSWs, that wage increase they got with the pandemic is going to be made permanent. Is that nearly enough to satisfy, what we see, the people working in the hospitals right now?
Yeah, that becomes the biggest question, Stephanie. How do we recruit and retain PSWs, support workers, those who are in hospital care and healthcare writ large? And I'm not sure that this quite works out the way that they think the government thinks it will. But let's also go back to what Minister Bethlen Falvey wouldn't answer in the scrums, and Siobhan talked about it in her reporting, that he wouldn't necessarily introduce this budget again. He wouldn't answer that question. So yes, this is a platform document. Goodness, at least during the Harris Eve years, they had the sense to introduce a platform off-site outside of the legislature at Magna, and not in the House, to give it some sort of validity, which frankly isn't there. But also, I'll bring back to what Andrea Horwath just mentioned. Yes, people are getting a couple of $100 extra maybe here and there, but the minimum wage that was canceled when Doug Ford came in, the minimum wage increase that was canceled when Doug Ford came in, that was $6,000 a year that was put into pockets of Ontarians that could have gone back into spending on a number of things that matter to them. They don't want to talk about these sort of tax cuts and these dribs and drabs. And look, Ralph Klein got himself reelected on giving people rebates in Alberta, and Doug Ford's trying to do the same thing. But when you take $1 billion out of the Treasury, which could be put into programming, which could be put into long-term care, which could make it so seniors could pay for these services with their own HIP card and not their credit cards, those become very problematic. And that's what people will have to judge, whether that $140 they got back it makes their lives better, or if they could actually afford to put their loved ones into long-term care if they could find a bed. That would have been a better use of money from my perspective.
All right, let's, Kim, Adrian, and Alvin, thanks so much. We're going to listen in to the minister for a little bit more.
Breathing devices.
Editor-in-Chief of the Toronto Sun, Adrian Batra, and Alvin Tedjo, the former Liberal leader, Liberal candidate. And, you know, hearing the whole strategy piece, Adrian, I want to put it to you. Why would Mr. Bethlen Falvey not commit to having the public vote on this as the budget, should they be reelected?
Well, I think they're anticipating that they're going to be campaigning on this budget,
right,
and that is their financial blueprint. So by virtue of that logic, it would be Ontarians already passing judgment on it, and in the electorate passing it for them if they were to win another majority government. So, I mean, if this, from a political perspective, that's what I can imagine what they are planning on doing. But just because the minister hasn't committed to it doesn't necessarily mean it won't happen. But that said, I think that the thinking and the strategy simply is, this is what they're going to be going on to the hustings with. This is their financial blueprint. If Ontarians accept it or reject it, that's you know, satisfactory for them. And with respect to when this budget came out and the sort of gerrymandering around when it was supposed to come, I mean, I didn't like that either. I think that, you know, you have obligations and expectations to the taxpayers of Ontario. But I just don't think that that's something that they're going to, you know, obsess about. It's not something they're going to be so focused on. I think that they care about is the affordability. They care about their own pocketbook issue. They care about whether or not, you know, they can afford you know, things for their kids, their family, and from a financial blueprint, you know, the Ford government is attempting to sort of touch on all Ontarians in all regards, whether it's the environment, healthcare, or infrastructure. But the focus on what they call good jobs, good high-paid jobs, you know, those are things Ontarians are looking at, you know, when their kids graduate, their grandkids, you know, those are the sorts of things that the Ford government wants Ontarians to take away from a budget, a document such as this, and what they will campaign on.
Right. And Alvin, speaking about the timing of, well, as Adrian said, people care more about the Raptors, though. You did say that initially, right? When,
and the Jays. You know, the Jays are doing really well, too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
They're and the Jays, too, yes.
But just quick thoughts on, you know, we're hearing from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. They're saying they're applauding the government's move to cut income tax rates for low-income Ontarians, but disappointing there's no broad-based tax relief or clear plan to eliminate the province's budget deficit. Did you expect a broad-based tax relief, Alvin?
Yeah, I think, I mean, this is an election campaign budget, obviously, as we know. I think, I'm not sure if the minister is being tongue-in-cheek or not, whether or not he be the one delivering the same budget in the fall. But remember, this is the third minister of finance that Doug Ford has had in the last 4 years, so maybe it would be somebody else. And maybe that's why he sort of said his little pitch to the premier, which I haven't really seen before, where a finance minister is really calling out his party and calling out the leader of the party at the end of his budget speech, which I thought was a little bit odd. But I think the point of this budget is, or the point of this platform piece, is to try and get headlines. And from a political point of view, I don't think there was anything in here really that's going to capture the imagination of Ontarians and of voters starting next week. So I think on that front, it's kind of a disappointment. I think conservative supporters are going to be disappointed that there isn't anything to really latch onto. And I don't think it really expanded his base at all. I think you're going to have the fight between the opposition parties to see, who is in a better position to defeat the government. But Ford is really looking like he just wants to hang on to his cards and protect the seats that he's had, which is going to be difficult. He's lost over 20 MPPs since the last election, so he'll have even fewer incumbents. So this is going to be an uphill battle for him as well.
Well, you know what? We're going to see what your leader thinks now. Adrian and Alvin, thank you so much. Joining us now live is Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca. Mr. Del Duca, thank you for joining us. I want to start off by asking you, what isn't in this budget for you?
Well, look, as a father who's got 2 young daughters attending publicly funded schools, I'm absolutely appalled that today the Ford Conservatives confirmed that they cut $1.3 billion from our public education system, that they chose in the second year of COVID to not spend an additional $2 billion that they had already budgeted to help deal with COVID in our schools. And I think back to the story of a number of weeks ago when we learned that private schools in this province, the students who attend the private schools, were able to access rapid tests from the Ford Conservatives, and kids in public schools weren't. So as one example, deeply, deeply disappointing, but sad to say not shocking, because everybody knows Doug Ford and his team don't care about publicly funded education.
All right, so moving forward, as you know, this isn't going to be voted on. This is, the basically a costed platform that we're hearing and it's going to be going to the public on the election trail. What would you tackle here for the Liberals to take it away from the Conservatives here? He's playing to his base, a strong base. How can you take away from that? How can you win some voters over? And what are the nuggets that you would propose?
Yeah, so first of all, let's talk about who Doug Ford has been catering to for the past 4 years. Everybody knows this about Doug Ford. It's his wealthy political donors. It's the richest of the rich, the biggest corporations, hasn't been looking after public schools or the kids who attend them, hasn't been looking after our parents and grandparents, certainly hasn't been looking after small businesses who he's abandoned throughout this entire pandemic. So we know who Doug Ford's side, the side that he's on. And this election campaign will present a very clear choice between the Ford Conservatives, who want to drag us backwards and make the rich richer, and a new Ontario Liberal team that will invest in revolutionizing elder care by creating a home care first approach to making sure that our parents and grandparents can stay safe in their own homes. We're going to make sure that public education is properly funded, smaller class sizes, schools in a state of good repair. And we're going to build an economy where workers and their families and small business owners are actually able to achieve the dignity that they have earned in this province. A very clear choice. Backwards with the Ford Conservatives, forward, hopefully, with determination and optimism with the new Ontario Liberal team.
Let's talk about affordability, which many said is going to be the question with this budget. Do you see affordability being tackled here? There is housing being built, but the word affordability doesn't appear too much in this document.
Well, look, on the housing front, we've seen over 4 years, 3 or 4 now, housing plans from Doug Ford and his team. I look at his latest version of a housing plan, nothing for renters, nothing for first-time home buyers, nothing for student housing, and the list goes on from there. It is true that hardworking families in this province are struggling with pocketbook challenges. That's why tomorrow I'll be announcing a plan for 4 changes to the tax system we have in Ontario. 4 changes that are smart and fair, will make life more affordable for struggling families, and will make sure that the richest in this province, be it individuals or big corporations, pay their fair share while we're supporting small businesses. So stay tuned for the announcement that I have coming tomorrow.
Okay, so these are going to be, let's talk about the lift, the expansion of that tax credit for people now who earn $50,000 or less. It enables approximately another 700,000 people to get a $300 a month break or year break. What do you say to that?
Well, look, and I said this earlier today, I understand, as I mentioned a moment ago, that there are many people in this province who are struggling. They're working hard each and every single day, and yet they're falling further and further behind. So more support for them makes sense to me. But I also have to question, 4 years ago, Doug Ford callously canceled paid sick leave. He stopped the increases to the minimum wage that were previously set up to occur. Those are just two examples. He was the last premier in Canada to get an agreement with the federal government, depriving hundreds of thousands of Ontario families in thousands of dollars in savings for $10 a day licensed childcare. So at the last second, right before a campaign formally begins, for Doug Ford to pretend that he's on the side of everyday people just doesn't ring true. And again, people in this province can see through the gimmicks. They know who Doug Ford is there to help. His friends, his donors, and the richest of the rich, and that will end under an Ontario Liberal government.
Okay, quickly, a couple seconds. How are you going to become the retail politician that Mr. Ford is described as?
Look, it's just about hard work. I learned a long time ago from my parents and grandparents, no shortcut to success. The Ontario way, keep your head down, keep your sleeves rolled up, and work relentlessly hard to deliver progress, and that's what I'm doing.
Sir, thank you. Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca, appreciate your time. You're watching Toronto's Breaking News CP24, and thank you for watching our special coverage of the 2022 Ontario budget. And thanks also to our political panel and all our guests for their insights and reaction. Finance Minister Peter Bethlenfalvy up next on Live at 5.